Hi, welcome to the Get Ready with God podcast. My name is Julie Taylor, and I am your host, and I am not God, obviously. I'm not an expert. I'm not even a scriptorian. I'm literally just a girl sitting in front of a microphone, hoping God is real. The Get Ready with God podcast is the daily devotional podcast to help you see divinity in every day. There is a content warning on today's episode because I'm going to talk about Santa. So if you have children around, skip this episode. Listen to it later. Okay, let's talk about Santa. And here's the thing I need to say. I could not actually care less what you do with Santa in your home for your children. I have no desire to convert you to anything. I don't usually share my opinions because I've decided to do what I think is best for my family. It might be right or wrong. I don't know. And I have no desire to convert you or change your mind. So that being said, I have to bring it up for context of a later conversation. So in our home, we don't teach our kids that Santa is real. We just don't do a lot of the like pretending stuff. And then as soon as they're kind of like age appropriate, we have the actual conversation with them, in which we also include please don't tell other children. It's really fun to help other people believe if they believe. And so we try to not ruin the fun for anyone else. I have my reasons, and they're pretty deep-seated reasons for me to do this. And I don't think they need to be your reasons, but one of them is contextual to the conversation that I want to have with you today. So we don't teach our kids that Santa is real. One of the funny things that happened around this is that when we lived on the East Coast, we took our 3 small children to see the Fifth Avenue Santa, like the big famous Santa. And because we do like all the traditions and we like put cookies out, but we all know that it's just like something fun that we're doing. We don't like actually teach that it's like a real thing that's happening. It's like more fun, whimsy traditions, not reality. So we took our kids to see the Santa, and it was really magical. They had made this whole like magical land. You had to have an appointment. We waited in line, but the line was like a Christmas village. I mean, it felt like Disneyland. And as we were walking out from that experience, my oldest child, who was like, I don't know, probably like 7 or 6 at the time, said to me, "Hey, I know that you said Santa isn't real, but that was totally real. So you were wrong." And I was so entertained by that because I was like, you know what? I told them the truth and they decided to believe differently. And that believing didn't really stick. But I just thought it was really funny because it was a good illustration of like, you can teach your kids whatever you want. You can teach them but they're going to believe what they want to believe. And so I felt like I had done my job of like, well, I told you the truth, but if you want to believe what you want to believe, great. But the conversation I want to have with you today is sometimes when we get into this debate with people will say, well, what about God or Jesus? You teach them to believe in that, and that's not real either by their summation, right? And I kind of just wanted to have this conversation because it really does kind of sum up one of the core reasons that I choose to believe and that I chose to come back to faith and to like work so hard to rebuild something. And it is because the difference to me, which this sounds so funny, but literally the difference between teaching my kids that Santa is real and teaching my kids that God is real. Because remember, I'm a hoping God is real girl. So like, I don't actually think there's like tangible evidence to prove God exists. And so I could see why a hater would come at me saying, well, you teach them that and you teach them to believe in that. And that's also fake, again, by their summation. The difference to me is obviously I believe differently than this person. Like I want to believe in God. I'm trying to believe in God. I gather evidence every day that God exists. I have tangible, real, solid, full evidence, undisputable evidence that Santa is not real. So there's not an element of faith or hope in that for me. And so I don't pass that on to my kids because I know without a doubt that Santa is not real. God, to me, even in my phases of atheism, the thing I could never find peace with is that it was not ever undisputable. There was always a debate. There was always contrary evidence. I could never find certainty in disbelief. And that same desire for certainty is what originally drove me away from faith. I wanted to know. I wanted to be certain, and I couldn't. And that broke me. And so I left. It was also much deeper, and there was other reasons. But that is like the thing. I was like, I can't know for sure, and so I'm out. And then when I was out, I got to the point where I said, I can't know for sure, and so I'm in. And that is the difference between God and Santa to me. Let's take this soundbite for the internet. This is what this episode is. The difference between God and Santa. Let's break it down. One, I can prove. The other, I can't. And so God is, of course, something, I mean, I would love if Santa was real. I haven't started my Christmas shopping. Times are tough. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? But I'm not living with this like hope and faith that Santa, the actual person, is real. The spirit of Santa, the service, all of that, we still embody in our home and we try to teach and we try to pass on. But the actual reality of a person existing named Santa who does all of those things that we say he does is not real. It is not true. And I know that without question. And I do respect the people who have come to the conclusion that they have that same evidence to dispute God. And so they choose to teach their children that. I genuinely respect that, actually. Like, if that's what you think to be true, I could understand why it feels really uncomfortable to serve your child lies. Because to me, that's how it feels to me to like really teach my, it feels too much like I'm lying. But with God, there's a hope and a faith and a desire there that I want to choose, that I want to believe in, that I want to pass down to my children. And I can't prove he's not real. I can't prove God is not real. I can't. I also can't prove he is. I try every day. I work very hard, built a whole platform, a whole podcast to do so. And I'm really hoping, praying, wishing, but I can't. I can't prove he's real and I can't prove he's not. And so I'm going to sit in this uncertainty happily and pass on all of the good things that come from believing in God, which in my opinion are faith and hope and sacrifice and service and a big, huge world perspective and all of these things. That's why I'm choosing to believe in God. That's why I'm teaching my children to believe in God. And that is the difference between God and Santa. This episode is a little unhinged, but it's an actual debate that I've had many times. And at work this week, I started telling my coworkers how I don't teach my kids about Santa. And they actually responded like more positively than anyone has. Probably because most of them are younger than me and don't have children yet. And so they're not as judgmental of my parenting. Or maybe they're more judgmental of my parenting and they just had a conversation about me after I left the table. That's fine too. I don't care. It's all fine. But to me, that is the difference between God and Santa. And that is how I think it illustrates how I find peace in parenting around faith when I navigate so much uncertainty myself. But that's why I came back to faith. I couldn't prove it either way. And so I chose the one that was best for the plot, honestly. Love you. Bye.